Gentlemen, many thanks for making time to speak to us. Nico, let me just start with you. Just give us a sense of the numbers. How are we looking? This, of course, as a backdrop to where we were maybe 3-4 months ago.
Okay. So, per average, every year we lose about 15,000 people lose their lives on the roads. And that usually increases over December time. And I think this year it looks like it probably might be the same again, given there's already the festive season has started. We've seen already some road deaths and major road accidents over this long weekend.
Philip, let's talk maybe on the policy side of things. We do know there's a lot of travel, people heading back to the rurals and maybe going back to see their families over in the countryside. We already know this is bound to happen. Do we get a sense that maybe the enforcement agencies are not prepared here in light of what we already expect?
I think given the number of vehicles on the road, especially at this time of year, it's very hard to police every stretch of road that there is out there. Enforcement is critical. Without that, we're not going to win the war. But it's also incumbent upon everybody out there to do their bit to contribute to getting home safely.
Right. To actually do your bit, just to pick up on what Philip is saying, just give me a sense of what everyone can actually do to do their bit, apart from the usuals, just pedestrians not jaywalking, as they might call it in the States. What does it mean to actually do your bit? Okay,
so let's look at road fatalities and road accidents over the year in South Africa. So we see about 75% of all road traffic incidents are caused by human behavior. And we find it is people not stopping at stop signs, running over red lights, it's drunken driving, speeding, making unsafe turns and passing vehicles at unsafe places. It's really in the control of the driver what happens on the road. Unfortunately, although the driver determines what happens on the road, in most cases, it's predominantly your pedestrians and your passengers that get hurt or that dies in car crashes.
Philip, give me a sense of the common offences here that we are actually seeing, at least from your end.
Well, probably one of the greatest offences is the drink driving at this time of year. If we look at the stats, you're going to find that your greatest risks are a Friday, Saturday, Sunday evening. And that comes down to people drinking, people being tired, and are then combined with that speeding and not paying attention overall.
Before maybe 20 years ago, there weren't many officers equipped with speed guns. Now we are seeing many of those. We're seeing e-tolls coming in. You are seeing maybe technology kind of catching up with the times. Is this enough, or maybe should more be done to start with?
So I think that there is definitely an impact of new technology in road behavior and the type of accidents we see, but it's definitely not in South Africa at a level that it makes a material difference. It really comes down to obeying the rules of the road, and I think it is that basic that is actually that we need to have in South Africa with proper law enforcement, and there is quite a bit of law enforcement, but unfortunately the agencies don't have enough manpower to ensure that they can manage all roads. But for us, it's going back to adhere to the rules of the road, drive responsibly, and you will arrive safely.
Philip, let's talk some insurance now. How essential is it for one to actually have a cover this time of the year, let alone maybe something that is more tailor-made for times like this? Just give me a sense of this, especially in light of the times that we are actually going into the next 4 or 3 weeks.
I think Nico's probably better placed to answer insurance questions, but we are in that time of year where in all areas there is risk. You know, people are stocking up on gifts at home, they're spending a lot of money, they are out on very dangerous roads. Your risk goes up throughout all facets of your life at this stage. And for a lot of people, the thought of insurance is expensive until they realize the costs of not having insurance. And simply the cost of having an incident in a car, you may think that your risk is your own vehicle, but when you're having to deal with paying off the vehicle that you own, plus paying for public transport, plus paying for somebody else's vehicle and their hospital bills, it is just unimaginable for most people.
Nico, let's talk insurance. Often when you talk to a few gentlemen, they'll tell you maybe owning a golf a 6 is not a good idea. The insurance is sky high for obvious reasons, as opposed also a Polo as opposed to maybe a caravan. You know, just give me a sense of the risk here. Festive season, 2 weeks from now. How essential is it to have the right cover for you?
It's essential to have the right cover.
Or cover to start with.
Yeah, so I mean, the starting point with insurance is if you're not sure, then speak to your broker, speak to your financial advisor, or speak to your insurance company directly. Ask them the questions about your cover. Am I covered for damage? Am I covered if I drive into someone else? Those kind of questions is essential. Then, what I think is also important is to ask if you are covered for towing. If in event that your car has crash, etc., make sure that you know tows your vehicle. It's also important that you understand how your policy work. So be prepared before you go, and keep the cell phone number of your insurer or of your broker on your cell phone, and know who to phone in event of a claim.
Philip, do we know some hotspots here, at least on the road here to Durban? You're expecting there are some spots that are synonymous with maybe road accidents or fatalities. Do we know some hotspots? And in light of that, what are the common claims that you do actually do here as the AA?
Well, again, I think from an insurance side, Nico is better placed to speak. From a hotspot perspective, Durban, Van Riemen's is probably one of the most dangerous stretches of road. The road itself is not overly dangerous, but the attitude of people who think that it's a wonderful racetrack and I can do these curves really, really fast, they can be they can catch you very unaware. And I think a lot of people on roads like that, and also getting into the cities where people are now getting a bit tired, they haven't taken enough breaks, they haven't eaten enough, that is where we start to see some dangerous situations.
How essential is it for us to involve public transport drivers into this conversation, and maybe bus drivers and operators of these heavy machines at this time of the year? Because it's one thing for me to be driving my car and I get into an accident, and it's another to actually cost the lives of 56 or 66 people. How essential is it for us to actually engage them?
Yeah, so I mean that is key. Bus drivers, taxi drivers take up a big portion of road traffic on our roads. Many of the more formal businesses have programs with the drivers, but they are essentially just as important as anyone else on the roads. And I think what we must also do is we must have patience when we drive behind buses, drive behind taxis. They transport people, and we must be aware that this is people's lives. Slow down, make sure that when you pass like a bus or a taxi that there's enough way for you to pass safely. But they do make up an important portion of the road usage, as well as pedestrians. I mean, we underestimate sometimes how many people use our national roads as places to walk to get to work or to home. And we need to be also aware of those people when we use our roads.
Philip, very briefly before I let you go, we've seen a lot of messages coming through, especially from beer companies, alcohol companies. Do you get the sense that this is actually trickling down to the consumer, or is it just something we just see in your timeline and you just let it pass?
I think the problem that we have is that there is an assumption that it's the other guy and not me. People believe they can handle the one or two drinks, and it's the other guy. And it's breaking through that is our challenge. But we will get there eventually.
Gentlemen, many thanks for making time to speak to us, and have a festive, Merry Christmas, should I say. Nico Esterhusizen, who's the General Manager for Insurance Risks over at South African Insurance Association, and Philip Purnell, who's the Head of Department for Public Affairs over at AA.